The Wednesday Warmup. Welcome back to the Wednesday Warmup. I'm Danielle Dubois alongside my co-host Millan Jane. This week we'll be giving our predictions on week 7 and recapping what happened in week 6. Now, Millan, I know last week the Vikings were your lock and they clearly did not win. What are your takeaways from that game?
I'm going to be honest with you. I thought the Vikings had a shot. Dalvin Cook went down before the game. He was inactive. And you basically see how much that team revolves around Dalvin Cook in the run game. They couldn't really get anything on offense. On the flip side, though, Atlanta played very well. They fired their head coach, Dan Quinn, which I don't know why they didn't do after the Super Bowl loss to New England. And it looks like they're taking steps in the right direction. Danielle, last week you hit it right on the bud that they have talent, but they're not using it because of their coaching. And I think now that their coach is gone, they're finally getting in the right direction, which ultimately led them to a win. I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year. I think there's too many star-studded teams in the NFC, but I think they're finally starting to make a push in the right direction. There's rumors that Julio Jones might be traded to New England. For all I know, there's nothing that's been acted upon yet. No discussions with that sort of things. But when it comes to that in Minnesota, they need to – we didn't expect less of Minnesota, with the loss of Xavier Rhodes, the loss of Stephon Diggs. They're hurting both on offense and defense. Obviously, this will be a rebuilding year, and they're going to have to do some major rebuilding in the upcoming draft.
They for sure are, and I'm so excited to see the Falcons turn over a new leaf. I think they can really make it far next season. Millan, any other takeaways from this week before jumping into week 7?
I think the biggest takeaway is we finally got to see what the Browns are like. We're going in, they were 4-1 before they played the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost their first game pretty badly to the Baltimore Ravens, and then they won 4 straight. And I think everyone like me was like, okay, this Browns team might be for real. This might be a really good NFC North division. No, and not to say that it's because of Baker Mayfield. I think that they were carried by their run game. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, they had the best running game in the NFL. And it basically showed that when the game is on the line and it's put on Baker Mayfield's shoulders, can he step up? And he couldn't do it. They're going to be facing teams. If they want to make it far, they're going to have to face teams that will be able to stop the run in Pittsburgh, in New England, in Buffalo, in Kansas City, Baltimore again. It's going to start with Baker Mayfield. If he can make the needed plays, they might be all right. But to then, they're just going to be that average team that we knew that they were going to be.
I completely agree with that. I know exactly what you mean because Baker Mayfield obviously did not show up this week, and it was a little depressing because they were on a roll there, and for a while I was like, okay, this might be a really scary team to play, but exactly. I think they were proven wrong this week. Jumping right into week 7, we're going to start off with the Thursday night game, the Giants versus the Eagles. Millan, who do you have in this game?
The Giants got a little bit of swag coming off of their win last week against I forget who they played. But I think it was the football team. Sorry. They played the football team. They got a little bit of swag back. That being said, I have the Eagles in this game. The Eagles, they had 2 weeks ago, they got their first win at San Francisco, and then they played Pittsburgh, and they ultimately lost. I thought they played a very, very good game. Travis Fulgham really stepped up. And then they played the Ravens last week, which obviously was a death match. The two teams were very outnumbered when you looked at the score sheet. But the Eagles were able to hold in. They were able to hold up their game. They had a comeback. Obviously, Baltimore was just a little bit better than the Eagles. But I think the Eagles are going to win this game. I think they're looking in the right direction. With the loss of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, I think the Eagles will be able to take this division. The Eagles are still riddled with injuries on the O-line and the wide receivers. Nonetheless, they're still making it work. So I have the Eagles in this one.
I would agree with you on that one, just because I feel like the Eagles overall are a better team than the Giants. The Giants have not really shown up this season as much as I thought they were going to, so I feel like the Eagles are for sure going to take it, especially with Wentz. Moving on to the first Sunday game, the Steelers versus the Titans. Both are undefeated. There's going to be one team with their first loss of the season. Millan, who do you think is going to have their first loss this week?
Wow. As a Pittsburgh fan, this is a tough game because this is where Pittsburgh's really going to be tested. A lot of people are saying, hey, they're 5-0, but they haven't really played a good team. You could argue that the Browns were a good team. But these next 2 games, Baltimore and Tennessee this week, are going to be the test for Pittsburgh. They lost Devin Bush last week to a torn ACL. he's gonna be replaced by David Spillane, which is obviously a big difference as a guy who doesn't really play as much to a Pro Bowl type guy in Devin Bush. And then you got Derrick Henry, who, Danielle, obviously you would probably agree with me that dude's on another level. In my opinion, he could be a MVP race candidate, obviously, because it always goes to quarterbacks. He could be a guy that could be in the possible running for the MVP because that dude's just insane to watch. The problem is, here's the key to that game. I think that you can't run on the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, they're able to stop Hunt. They're able to stop Barkley. They're able to stop Miles Sanders. And I'm gonna pretty much say the same thing. Is I think they were gonna be able to stop Derrick Henry, not because Derrick Henry is that bad, but because the Steelers' run defense is insane. That being said, can Ryan Tannehill be able to throw the ball? Because he's gonna be forced to. And he showed that he could be able to throw the ball. He's been throwing a lot. I think against the Bills, he threw 3 touchdown passes. Against the Texans, he threw another couple touchdown passes. Will he be able to do that? Yes. But he hasn't faced a Pittsburgh defense like that a defense like Pittsburgh. And that's where I think Pittsburgh will have a slight advantage. The way Pittsburgh played last week was almost flawless on defense. They were giving many different looks. The pre-snap versus post-snap looks on defense was completely different. I think that's going to be the key right there, is being able to confuse Ryan Tannehill, keep him off the field. And I think Pittsburgh will be able to do a very good job of that on offense. And I'm going to have Pittsburgh here, not by a lot, but I think Pittsburgh will be able to win this game.
I for sure see it being a close game. I think it's going to be mostly of who does more on offense.
Yeah.
For sure, especially with the Steelers' defense, as you were saying, especially blocking Derrick Henry. That's going to be the most interesting part of the game, I think, is just seeing how much they can stop him, or if they can. Because some weeks your defense can be off, especially after losing a key player. Exactly. So it's going to be a toss-up, but I'm going to take the underdog. I'm going to say the Titans. I feel like their offense has really been working this season, and it's just going to be if their defense can stop the Steelers' offense or not. And I think that they can, so I think they're going to win, not by much, probably a field goal or a touchdown at most, but I'd say that the Titans are going to pull it out in the end. Moving on to the next game, we have Cowboys versus the Washington football team. Now, I personally think that the Cowboys are going to pull it out here, as much as I hate to say, because I'm about Stephen A. with the Cowboys. The Cowboys recently lost Dak, and they have Andy Dalton as their backup quarterback. So it's kind of a toss-up there, especially because last week he did not show up. But I feel like it's pretty easy to stop the Washington football team, and I feel like they have the defense to stop the Washington football team, especially because their offense has not shown up a lot this season. Millan, what do you think?
I have to agree with you on this one. Andy Dalton has led the Bengals to a couple I think one playoff run. And has won the division many times with the Bengals. You know, he has experience, and he's obviously a step down from Dak. That's going to be said. But I think they have just enough weapons on the offensive side of the ball to be able to keep a very star-studded defense in Washington on the heels. And obviously on the offensive side of the ball with Washington, they don't have really anybody. Kyle Allen's now their quarterback. They just don't have anything clicking. And I think that embarrassing loss to the Giants is really going to carry them into this week. So I'm going to have the Dallas Cowboys in this game.
Next game is Bills versus the Jets. The Bills are 4-2, where the Jets are 0-6. I think I have a clear winner of this game. I'm going to say the Bills, especially because their offense has really shown up this year, especially compared to any other teams in the league. They're at the top of their league right now, aren't they, Millan?
They are.
And they've shown up, and they've really said, hey, like, this is our year to show up and use Josh Allen to their fullest of their ability. And so I think it's going to be a complete wipeout of the Jets.
I have to agree with you on this one. And this is going to be my lock of the week. Hopefully I can jump back into me being the lock and winning than last week. But I have to agree with you on this one. You know, they've lost 2 in a row, the Bills have. And I know for sure Josh Allen's not going to lose a third, especially against this really confused New York Jets team. You know, I don't think anyone knows. Are they actually trying to lose to get Trevor Lawrence? Are they actually trying? Do they just not have anyone? And I don't think that this is going to be a really close game. This is going to be a really close game at all. I'm going to have the Bills by a landslide in this one.
I agree, especially with the Jets losing Le'Veon Bell. They're still trying to get back into it. Offensively, it's going to be a blowout, I'd say. Next game is the Panthers versus the Saints. Now, the Saints have looked a little iffy this season, I must say. They have a 3-2 record so far, which isn't awful, but they've looked a little shaky compared to some of the teams that they've been playing. They have amazing offensive weapons such as Cook and Kamara, and Drew Brees is a great quarterback, but it's going to be kind of a toss up here. The Panthers are a 3-3 team. They just lost Cam Newton last season, so they're trying to get back into the whole offensive swing. But I can see the Panthers easily winning this game. I'm not going to have them winning this game. I'm going to say the Saints are going to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers take them, just because the Saints defense is pretty iffy lately as well, and it's not a guaranteed, I'd say.
I would agree with you on that one as well. I think the Saints are coming off of a well-rested bye week. And like you said, they get weapons in Kamara and Cook. And I don't know what the status is on Michael Thomas yet, but if he comes back, that's definitely going to be another help. And they did have Emmanuel Sanders for a while. I don't know what happened to him. I think both teams are very good. I like what you said. It's going to be a close game. I think the Saints will be able to edge it out, obviously, with Breeze. The quarterback comparison between Breeze and Teddy Bridgewater, I'm going to take Breeze any day.
The next 1:00 game is the Packers versus the Texans. The Packers are 4-1 and the Texans are 1-5. I'm going to say the Packers are going to win here, especially with Aaron Rodgers on their team. Nobody better as a quarterback to play against the Texans, I would say. I'd say it's going to be a pretty clear win for the Packers.
I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I think in every NFL week, there is going to be one upset that we don't see coming, and I think this is going to be that upset. The Packers lost last week pretty badly to Tom Brady and the Bucs. When Tom Brady and the Bucs actually look like a Super Bowl team, I don't know if they could be. The thing is, in this league is consistency. We've seen the Packers be consistent except last week, and we haven't seen the Texans be consistent. But last week was a great showing by the Texans. Deshaun Watson throwing 4 touchdowns, leading the team back into overtime, and potentially could have won. I think they would have won with good coaching. If they went for that field goal at the end of the game instead of going for 2, because they would have been up by 8 rather than 7. And so I like the Texans in this one. I think Deshaun Watson is going to continue. I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and I think he's going to continue that streak here down in Houston.
Deshaun is a great quarterback. I have him on my fantasy bench, and he has racked up a lot of points. I've regretted not putting him in sometimes.
Me too.
The neest game is the Browns versus the Bengals. Now, this is going to be an interesting game, I'd say, Millan. The Browns are 4-2 right now. The Bengals are 1-4-1. Very interesting record to start off a season on. I'm going to say the Browns here, especially with Baker Mayfield. Even though he didn't show up to play as much as I thought he would last week, I think he's going to not allow another loss. I feel like he's going to come back out there with a new fire and lead the Browns to win against the Bengals. What do you say?
I'm going to give you the same. I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think Joe Burrow is still young. He's still learning. I think he doesn't have as much weapons as as Baker does. And I think this is going to be a good time for Baker to step back and be like, who am I? And how am I going to lead this team? And I think this is a great team. The Bengals are a great team for the Browns to lead against. They'll be able to run the ball very well. They'll be able to throw the ball very well. And I think the Browns defense will be able to have another shot to revive and get better. So I do have the Browns at this one as well.
The last 1:00 game on Sunday is the Lions versus the Falcons. The Falcons have a 1-5 record, and the Lions have a 2-3 record, a better record than the Falcons, which isn't that hard to do. The Falcons have recently let go of their general manager and their head coach, so they are getting back into the swing of things after that. And after the Falcons win against the Vikings by a landslide, I feel like they have a great shot going into this game. But the Lions have shown up to play this year. They have really stepped back and taken a look at their offense and reevaluated some of their teams. Even though they've only won 2 games, they've had a lot more passion and they've showed up to play games, which they haven't done in the past. So I think this is honestly going to be a toss-up. I'm going to say the Falcons are going to pull it out in the end, but I can see it going either way.
I would agree with you on that one as well. I think the Falcons have some swagger on their side, especially winning against the Minnesota Vikings. They finally have they finally have some confidence in their team. Obviously, they're going to have to win 11 straight to even be considered a playoff contender. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think this is going to be the step in the right direction. And I like what the Falcons have been doing, finally finding the coach. And they're going to be able to, get the ball on the ground, get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. Julio went off with like 40 points last week, something insane like that. So I'm gonna I'm going to have the Falcons in this one.
I think the Falcons next year is going to be a whole new team for them. I think next year they could easily be a playoff team. Most likely not this year because of how bad of a start it came off with, but next year I think they're going to be the team to beat. Next game is the Seahawks versus Cardinals. The Cardinals have a 4-2 record and have shown up this year, and the Seahawks are undefeated. This might be Seahawks week where they actually lose a game. The Cardinals have shown up offensively for sure, especially against the Cowboys, kept them at a very low score this week. I can see the Cardinals winning. I don't think they are going to, but I wouldn't be surprised. But the Seahawks have Russell Wilson and Metcalf, and I think that's an unstoppable duo. I think the Seahawks are going to win, but it could go either way.
Like you said, I didn't see the Cardinals. I mean, obviously they were going to be a lot better with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, and this is Kyler Murray's second year. I didn't expect them to be 4-2 and in second place in their division. I don't even know. I don't know if they're a wild card team or in the playoffs yet. But they have come out a surprise, and but I think the not Minnesota. I think Seattle, like Baltimore and like Kansas City, are on a different level. You know, their offense is clicking both ways. Their defense is a little bit shaky. And they're gonna have to step up big time. You know, I don't think this is gonna be a given win for the why do I keep saying Minnesota? For the Seattle Seahawks. I think that Seattle's gonna have to step up, and they are the first place in the NFC right now, and I think they're the favorite to go to the Super Bowl. Will they? I don't know, because it's going to be the defense that's going to be the reason why they'll be able to win games in the future. Because once their offense stops putting up the points that they do, it's going to be the defense that's going to have to hold them. So I have the Seahawks winning in this one, but it's going to be a close game.
The next Sunday game is the Jaguars versus the Chargers. The Jaguars are 1-5 and the Chargers are 1-4. I'm going to give this one to the Chargers, especially because Justin Herbert has been doing a great job as quarterback. Even though they've only won one game, they have really shown that they can do stuff on offense, which they haven't been able to show in the past. And I think Justin Herbert is a perfect quarterback for their team, and he's really starting to step up and lead them to better things. I think the Chargers are going to win this one. Millan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. When you look at the Chargers' schedule, and it's not been the easiest. Like, it's not been the hardest, but it hasn't been the easiest. Obviously, they had to play the Chiefs, played the Buccaneers, they played the Saints. They played the Panthers, who've been pretty good. You know, the only win was against the Bengals. And like you said, this Justin Herbert dude came out of nowhere, came out of Oregon State. You know, when you think of quarterbacks in this year's draft class or last year's draft class, you think of Joe Burrows, and that's really pretty much it. You know, and you got this guy in Tua. Yeah, exactly. Joe Burrows and Tua. I'm happy that he's finally getting a start after everything he's been through. And you don't really think of Justin Herbert really as a starter, you know, and now you're starting to see that this guy, you know, everyone once Burrows got, you know, officially picked by the Browns or by the Bengals, everyone's like, this is going to be the rookie of the year. I think Justin Herbert could easily be a candidate for the rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year. You know, he showed that he's the real deal. I think he's going to be able to win Chargers more games than they possibly should have. On the flip side, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're in total rebuild mode. Majority of their team is under 23, and that shows a lot about their experience and their talent. I don't think they have anyone left on that AFC Championship team that when they lost to New England, maybe one or two guys. But I think in a couple of years they'll be able to make some noise. But now I think with Justin Herbert being as good as he is, they'll be able to get the win here.
I agree. And another thing about the Chargers are all their losses, they weren't a landslide by any means. They were still in it until the very last few minutes of the game, which I think is huge progress for the Chargers. But because before, when they're losing games, it would be a landslide. And by halftime, you would know the other team is going to win. But the Chargers have stayed in it until the fourth quarter of the game, which I think is tremendous progress.
Yeah.
The next game is the 49ers versus the Patriots. Now, this is going to be a pretty good game, I would say. The Patriots have a 2-3 record. The 49ers have a 3-3 record. This game could go either way, especially with the quarterbacks. I think the quarterbacks is going to be a great show between Garoppolo and Cam Newton. Now, Garoppolo is a great quarterback, but I just don't think he has the offensive weapons that he needs to lead their team to the Super Bowl like they did last year. Now, the Patriots, they're still trying to get back into things after a bunch of positive cases on their team, especially with Cam being out for a few weeks. I know Gilmore had to go out because of Corona. So they're trying to rebuild as best they can and kind of come off of the sicknesses. this past week, they stayed in the game against the Broncos for a pretty decent time. They had some pretty bad mess ups with N'Keal Harry in the very last minute of the game, which honestly cost them the game. It should have been a win by the Patriots, but had some silly mistakes that I think cost them the game. I can see the Patriots winning here because their defense has stepped up, especially last week, only letting the Broncos score 18 points. But it could go either way. This is going to be a very close game, and I think it's not going to be over until the very last second of the game. I think it matters of who gets the ball at the end of the game. I'm going to give it to the Patriots, but this is going to be a really close game. I'm really entertained.
This is going to be another – I think the Steelers game is probably the best game of the week. Not to be biased or anything, but I think this is where the second best game of the week is. And this is a game that I've had on my schedule ever since the schedule came out. One of the reasons being this Jimmy G is coming home for the first time to New England. Let's not forget that the Patriots traded him. He was the Patriots' future after Brady retired or he left. This was the Patriots' future, yet they traded him away. So this is going to be interesting to see how Jimmy G reacts to playing in Jet Stadium for the first time after he got traded. Yes, Patriots looked like absolute crap last week. Number one, let's not forget that the Patriots, like you said, Danielle, had so many COVID cases. They were only allowed to have 3 practices in 14 days. Obviously, the week last week got canceled, and this week, 2 weeks ago, they were canceled, and this week they did not play well because they couldn't really practice. And you clearly saw the lack of preparation that they had. Nonetheless, the defense still stayed in it. They only gave up 18 points, and in the NFL, if you give up 20 points or under, you're going to be very successful. Obviously, Cam Newton didn't show up. He was very inaccurate with the ball. N'Keal Harry, like you said, was really inaccurate. But the defense made plays. And they got timely turnovers. The offense obviously could not take advantage of those turnovers. And I'm going to blame it on the practice, on the lack of preparation. And I think now they're going to have a full week of preparation. Now they're going to be able to fully get ready, sit down. I don't think this will be a really close game. Obviously, I think it will be a close game for the majority of the game. I think in the fourth quarter, I think Cam's going to be able to pull it out and get this win here. So I'm going to give this one to New England. I think at the end of this game, I think New England has the tools and the weapons to wear down a team like San Francisco 49ers, and get this win here and force them into many mistakes. I don't know what the situation on Stephon Gilmore is. I don't know if you know, Danielle, if he's going to be playing or not. But regardless if he's playing or not, it didn't look like the New England defense was any worse without him. Even with the New England defense also had the most number of players opt out of the season, and still they look really good. And I think they're going to be able to force Jimmy G and the offense to force a lot of mistakes. And I think now with a full week of preparation, Cam and the guys will be able to capitalize and get the points that they need.
I agree. And I'm pretty positive that Gilmore is going to be playing this week. I'm not 100% sure, but the last time I checked, I'm pretty sure he is supposed to play this week. And one thing that we've seen a lot from the 49ers is a lot of mistakes. They came out the very first week. Everyone was expecting them to be great, especially after last season. Going to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, they played an amazing game there too. It was a great Super Bowl. But they came out this year and everyone was like, all right, what are the 49ers going to do next? They haven't shown up for years and they're finally on this trend of upward motion. They're like, oh, okay, they're going to be a Super Bowl winning team. And they came out this year and really just proved everyone wrong that they're not going to be a Super Bowl winning team. And they're destined to make lots of mistakes. So it's going to be interesting, but I think the Patriots got this one. The next game is the Chiefs versus the Broncos. The Chiefs have a 5-1 record and the Broncos have a 2-3 record. The Broncos are coming off of a win off the Patriots. I think that's going to give them a little bit of false confidence going into this, but they can also study what every other team has done against the Chiefs defensively, keeping all of the Chiefs games at a pretty close game, and everyone was in it until the very last quarter, like I was saying earlier with the Chargers. Every game that the Chiefs have played has been a pretty close game. It hasn't been a blowout for the most part. So I just think it's depending on if the Broncos defense can stop Mahomes and their offense. But I think the Chiefs can pull it out in the end because it's pretty easy to beat the Broncos, I would say.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one, but I don't think it's going to be a close game at all. I think this is going to be a complete blowout. You know, and you were talking about how the Chiefs and the Broncos, the teams that have played the Chiefs have kept it close because they played New England, who has a very good defense. You know, they played Buffalo with a good defense. They get the Raiders that I guess has a good defense. I'm still surprised on that they're even good. But they have the personnel to be able to keep them close. I don't know if the Broncos have. You know, I think it's going to be a really interesting task to see if the Broncos – they play them twice too. Let's not forget. The Broncos play them twice. And so I think and it's a short week too for Patrick Mahomes. Playing on I think did they play Tuesday or Monday? No, they played Monday. And I think it's a short week. I still think the Chiefs are going to pull it out. And yeah, I think the Chiefs are just a better team overall when you look at the stat sheet.
The Sunday night game this week is going to be a very good game. I'm actually very excited for this one. The 4-2 Buccaneers take on the 3-2 Raiders. This is going to be a very interesting game. I must say the Raiders have shown up this season. They were not destined to do super great, but they came out and they've been showing that they're an actual competitor for a lot of the teams that they're going to face. The Buccaneers have also done great lately, especially with 4 wins this season with Tom Brady, with Gronk, with Mike Evans. They have great offensive weapons. Their defense is what I was a little concerned about a few weeks ago, kind of going into things, because their offense is so good, but we're like, they don't talk about the defense, but their defense has been able to stop a lot of the teams. So I think that the Buccaneers can pull it out in the end, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders also take this one. A lot of the games this week, it's going to be kind of a toss-up, but I'd say Brady is going to run all over the Raiders.
I get that this game, the Steelers game, was flexed this week, and they weren't supposed to play this week. Nonetheless, still kind of pissed off that the Steelers game wasn't Sunday night. I get this game is a good game, but I still think the Steelers game should have been Sunday night. Now, that being said,
I'm just going to disagree with you on that one.
That being said, I liked all the points you made. I think the biggest thing we have to see from Brady and the Bucs this year is consistency, and I don't think we've seen it that yet. Brady looked really good a couple weeks ago, throwing 5 touchdown passes, followed it up by a really ugly loss to the Bears. Now he played a very good team in the Packers and won very, very handily. Now it's going to be is he going to be able to keep that streak up and play well against the Bears, the Raiders. So, the way that they played last week, the Buccaneers, I think they showed that that we're in this race as well, that we have a chance just like anyone else to go to the Super Bowl. And I like Brady and the crew here against this Raiders team. I think they're gonna be able to get the ball. Gronk and Brady finally had a connection, and you know how powerful that could be once that finally starts to get going. Mike Evans is back; he's healthy. I think Brady has some swagger going into this game. Not false confidence, just a little bit of swagger because he knows what happened after his last 5 touchdown game, and I think he's gonna do well. And the defense is really gonna step up pressure and Carr. So I'm having the Buccaneers on this one.
And I must say, this week was the first week we've really seen a lot out of Gronk. I know I had him on my bench for my fantasy team, and I ended up trading him because every week it was 0 or 1 point, and I was not happy with those results. But this was the first week we've really seen Gronk step up. So if they keep that kind of dynamic, especially with Mike Evans going into this week, it is going to be a complete offensive blowout of the Raiders.
Exactly. And you
the
see
very last game. Oh
no, I was just gonna say this Chiefs, this team. You're looking on paper, they were pretty dirty. Like I think everyone in this league was like, this could be the team that could go to the Super Bowl because of how good their offense is. They haven't showed it yet, but they're in the steps of the right direction. So, like you said, I'm excited to see where this team goes.
I am too. Going into the season, I was like, I don't know. Like on paper, they look good, but I feel like they're going to be overrated. But they have really shown up, and I've never enjoyed watching the Buccaneers until this year. So it's a new dynamic. The very last game of this week is the Monday night game, and it is the 5-1 Bears take on the 4-2 Rams. Now, Millan, I was a little shocked saying 5-1 for the Bears because that is not common with the Bears at all. This is going to be an interesting game, I must say. Both teams are doing way better than a lot of past seasons that they've done. None of these teams have been really known for being gray or good, and everyone's like, oh, the Rams, like, haha, like jokes, the Bears, and everyone makes fun of them for being bad, but they're clearly doing good this year. I think the Bears are going to take this game. I don't have much to say, but I've seen them really show up in the past few weeks, and I think that they can easily take the Rams.
I think I like what you're saying about the Bears. This team's come out of nowhere. Finally benching Mitchell Trubisky, and I fully expect him to get traded by the end of the year or before. And Nick Foles, we saw what he did in Philly, and he just basically went to Chicago and is doing the exact same thing. That being said, I'm going to give this one to the Rams. I think last year was a complete, utter, failure, you could even say. The Rams, they came off of losing a Super Bowl to New England, and they showed they showed that last season. They didn't make the playoffs, they had a losing record. And this year they turned everything around. Jared Goff is much more patient in the pocket. He's not making as many mistakes as he did last time. The loss of Todd Gurley really hurt, but they were able to replace him. Cooper Kupp is back. Robert Woods is back. Then this offense is really clicking. It's going to be the defense. Aaron Donald is one of the best to play his position in the game. Will they be able to put enough pressure to Nick Foles to either get a sack or get him, or to get him to make a mistake? And that's what I'm excited to see. And I think they'll be able to do just enough to beat this really good Bears team.
I agree. And last year when the Rams and Bears played each other, they met in 2019, and the Rams won 17-7, and it was a pretty close game, I'd say. And so I can see that exact kind of thing happening here. I think it's going to be not a super high scoring game because I think both defenses can stop each other's offenses and keep it a pretty low scoring game. But it's just going to be the matter of fact of what offense pulls out to be best.
Yeah, definitely.
Those are all of our games for this week. I know that I have not put in my lock yet. Millan, what was your lock again?
I had the Bills over the Jets. There's not really too much to say about that. Obviously, you can go the same way. I wouldn't be surprised because that's a pretty simple lock.
I'm going to say the Chargers are going to be my lock against the Jaguars.
Okay.
I feel like that's kind of risky because both teams have only won one game. But I have a lot of trust in Justin Herbert, so that's going to be my lock for the week.
Before we go, quick question, because a lot of people have been asking me this question, and I'm just curious to see what you said. There's three undefeated teams left: Seahawks, Titans, and Steelers. Obviously, one team is going to not be undefeated because the Steelers and Titans are playing each other. Who do you think is going to be undefeated the longest?
I was talking to you the other day about this, and I'm still keeping my same opinion. I'm going to say the Seahawks just because I feel like they can do the most offensively, and anyone can really make a point against me on this because they're all great teams. I'm not saying any team is bad necessarily. It's just a matter of fact of what team has what benefits. Now, the Steelers, they have the best defense in the league right now. They're amazing on defense. They can really stop any team, but we're really going to see that against the Titans this week to see how much they can really stop Derrick Henry, because I know that they can stop a running game pretty easily, but Derrick Henry is a beast. So I feel like he can really pull it out and kind of make the Steelers challenge themselves kind of a little bit. But I think the Seahawks benefit from this because they have the best overall offense from all the teams. Steelers are coming off of Ben being hurt. This is his first season back, and they're doing well offensively, but they're just not at the point that the Seahawks are. The Seahawks have Russell Wilson, Metcalf. They have an overall amazing offense that shows up every week. Even if I still see them losing a few games in this league, yes, but I think their offense is just a step above everyone else's, where Derrick Henry is mostly all that the Titans have for offensive weapons. And you can't rely off one player. So I think the Seahawks are going to go the farthest undefeated, but we'll see.
I like your take. I'm going to agree with you, but not for the reason that you said. But not saying that the Seahawks offense is bad or the Steelers offense is better than the Seahawks. I mean, obviously, I think the Seahawks the offense is elite. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are second best right there. It's just because of the way the wide receiver, they had Chase Claypool, obviously, came out of nowhere. But that's not the reason. I think based off of scheduling, I think between the Steelers and Titans are playing each other this week. I think the Steelers are going to win that game. Titans drop out. So now it's between the Steelers and the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks obviously are going to get this win. Next week, it's going to be the Steelers and the Ravens. Steelers travel to Baltimore. Seahawks play Niners at home. So I think that's the discrepancy. I think the Steelers will lose to Baltimore. That's going to be their first really, really, really good test. And I think they're going to lose to Baltimore. I have them splitting against Baltimore. And obviously, if they're playing at home against the Niners, in a game that they might be able to have fans back. That's another big thing. Seahawks might be able to finally have some fans back. And so I think the Seahawks are going to win that game. So that, just based off the schedule, that's who I have going undefeated the longest.
I can agree with that point. I think the Steelers are going to give a run for their money when they play the Ravens, and I'm excited to see how that turns out because I can see them winning against the Ravens, but that's going to be the real test is if they can really hold up.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that is this week's predictions. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wednesday Warmup. Join us next Wednesday as we go on week 8 and recap week 7. Make sure to like and follow our page, and we'll see you next week.